I'm so happy that you brought up also the original inspiration of thinking about how to move capital to the global south. As you know, in the last years, climate finance trends have been positive, actually surging past $1 trillion in total flows. But we still see a really massive gap in capital that's going to emerging and developing economies. And these countries account for 2/3 of greenhouse gas emissions worldwide, while also making up the majority of vulnerable climate hotspots. So moving capital here has really remained one of the biggest challenges that we face in achieving our overarching global goals. And we're often reminded of the crucial role of private capital partnering with public funds to deliver the scale of financing that's needed. Would you be willing to tell us more about ALTÉRRA's approach here? And I wonder if there are any recent examples that you could highlight to help bring this to life.
Yeah, well, Nili, I mean, you really put the nail on the head. It's that we know that unfortunately today, climate finance just isn't flowing to the global south the way we want it to, right? Roughly 80% is being invested today in the developed world, and we know that we need to flip that for exactly the reasons you talked about, where 2/3 of global emissions are coming from the developing world, and that's only going to grow as those economies grow. So we need to tackle it there. I think if I could step back and start at where we started as hosts for COP28. I was Director General for COP. I was working beside our COP President, Sultan Al-Jaber. And, we hosted COP because as the UAE, we've had a long history of being involved in climate change. Our leadership has been very dedicated to addressing the challenge of climate change, both at home and working with international partners to try to tackle this very important issue. And our president, the president of the UAE, really wanted that we were contributing across the board to solutions. And when we started, we wanted to understand what the challenge was. And we knew that we had this global stocktake. We knew that we were off track for achieving 1.5 degrees. And so Dr. Sultan and I, Dr. Sultan, by the way, today is our chairman at ALTÉRRA, and so really one of our guiding leaders. We traveled around the world, and I think we went to more than 100 countries. And everywhere we went, what we heard time and time again was that there were, many issues and many barriers, but at the core of it was really this issue of finance and how do we mobilize finance. And we would hear two things. We would hear from the finance community, oh, well, there was lots of capital, but there are no projects to invest in. And then we would hear on the flip side that there were lots of projects and investments, but there was no capital to go behind it. So we knew that there was some kind of mismatch in what we were hearing between these two things. And then we also were hearing from a lot of our really great financial experts and colleagues, and yourself, that you were involved in many of those conversations with us, that we needed to have a reform of the international financial architecture, that we needed to have a transformation of how the MDBs and the IFIs work, and the international financial institutions. And when we looked at how we as the UAE could make a contribution, how our president could make a contribution, we realized we couldn't solve everything. There was no silver bullet here that would solve all the climate finance issues, but what could we contribute that would really make a difference? So we felt that, well, we could either recreate some more concessional capital, which we felt was already there. So here in the UAE, we have Abu Dhabi Fund for Development, there's the World Bank, there's IFC, there's many other agencies globally that are providing concessional or grant-based capital. So we didn't think that that was purely the solution. We knew that the purely commercial private sector was there, saying that they wanted to invest. But there wasn't really something that sat in the middle that would sort of catalyze or get that flywheel going. And Dr. Sultan, under the leadership of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, our president, who for 20 years really has been a pioneer, especially when it comes to the renewable energy space. He, with Dr. Sultan, helped launched Masdar, our renewable energy company. And they've been investing in the Global South for years, working with grant capital from Abu Dhabi Fund for Development and other private finance, and Masdar doing the project development. They've been able to deliver many projects in the Global South today, so much so that Masdar is one of the largest renewable energy providers globally. And so what we thought was, what can we do to take that model and really scale it up? How can we put it on steroids, if you will? And that's where the idea of creating ALTÉRRA came from. How could we create something that sat between these two end members of the financial spectrum, but brought them together? And that's where we came up with this catalytic fund. And our president really was the one who said we wanted to come big with a 30 billion fund. And this is really, one of the most exciting things is about the scale of ALTÉRRA, the scale that we provide. So it's a clear message from the UAE and from UAE leadership that the UAE is putting its money where its mouth is. Alongside the many other investments we make when it comes to renewables and other types of investment in the Global South. And then we gave it this unique structure so that it was made up of these two funds. One was a 25 billion fund that we call Acceleration. It's a catalytic fund. It's bringing that scale to the market and saying, hey, we want to work with you, to partner with you, to deploy capital across the board anywhere in the world. And then clearly saying, but hey, we're going to dedicate 5 billion only for the Global South. And that's where we have our transformation fund that is really focused on how to deliver capital there in the Global South. And we've also set a target of mobilizing 250 billion by 2030. So with that, we created scale, we created structure, and we gave it a scope of being global. And I think that that's what makes ALTÉRRA really exciting. And to date, I feel proud that we have not only announced this at COP28, but we committed that we would deploy 6.5 billion of that capital with 3 partners. And we did that because we wanted to say, hey, we're not just making a pledge here, we're actually serious about this and we're actually going to do it. And our 3 partners, and we'll have more to come, but the 3 initial partners were Brookfield, BlackRock, and TPG. And with them, we've invested across 7 strategies. But what I'm most excited about is that we've created 3 Global South focused funds. One with BlackRock, where we are reinvigorating an existing strategy that they had. With Brookfield and TPG, we've created brand new funds, which we've seeded and they've gone out to raise against. And I'll tell you today, Nili, they are far exceeding our expectations of how much capital they'll be able to raise, which just goes to show the appetite there is out there for a vehicle that would allow investors to invest in the Global South and to invest in climate. And I think that that's how we've already been successful in disrupting the market. We've already been successful in raising capital. And now we need to take that next step to ensuring that we are deploying capital on the ground and particularly in the Global South.
It's amazing, really, to hear the origin of the vision, but to see it coming into the market and already having some of the impact that you envisioned. For example, the innovative fund structure that you created that makes a really meaningful commitment to start, but is designed to stimulate other institutional capital to come in, is an example of a innovation in structure that drives impact, but I think also by demonstrating to people what's possible.